Thanks for tuning in, guys. This episode is brought to you by Old Man Copper, Smoke Eater, Mustache Wax. Literally smells like a freaking house fire. Keeps you thinking about jobs all day long. Use discount code COPPER, COPPER, 10% off. Good dude. Check him out. Instagram, Facebook, website, oldmancopper.com. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Sitting down. I have the privilege to sit down with Mickey Farrell. Is that right, brother?
That's right.
All right. He's a lieutenant with FDNY for the last 24 years. He has 30 years in the American Fire Service. He's a founder and author of Top Floor Tactics, a nationally recognized platform focusing on the American Fire Service, culture, training, and leadership. He is a host of his own podcast where he blends his teaching style, talks about smart tactics, deep respect for tradition, and then making sure the students are engaged. He's no nonsense approach. Mickey inspires firefighters through embracing pride in the American Fire Service, ownership, and professionalism in every aspect of the job. So with all that said, again, my back is killing me. We were talking off camera a little bit, so that was a horrible intro. So Mickey, please, what did I forget? What did I mispronounce, my brother? And then we'll get talking on kind of your venture in the American Fire Service.
Thanks for having me, Steve-O. That was perfect. No need to go.
All right. You're too nice then. You're too sweet. So anyway, so we normally save this for the end, but my brother, you have 30 years in the American Fire Service, 24 years in the biggest department in the country. So why? Let's do the how and the why. So why did you get involved in the American Fire Service, and how, I should say? And then if you don't mind just kind of embracing the listeners on, let's go back 30 years, brother. And how'd you get involved in the American Fire Service?
Well, I guess my why would be that, I am a third generation fireman. So it's all I really ever knew. It's just what I grew up with. It was weekends at the volunteer firehouse with my dad. It was going into the union hall with my grandfather, who was a career firefighter. And it's just the way I was raised. And, it goes beyond just the fire service. It was a family. So it was very natural just to follow that path,
No, I got you. And that is, I think what most of us enjoy the most about the American Fire Service, the family. And then the fact that you're a third generation is absolutely amazing. I have a soft spot for any generational fireman, especially in the position I am now, because I could be wrong, but I guarantee my kids will never be firemen, which is kind of sad. I wish they would, but it's okay. So it's the fact that you're following so it's your grandfather and your father. Is that correct? They were both firemen?
My father and my uncle. There was a bunch of us. Cousins all gave it a shot here and there. It was one of those things that you either, you found yourself a carpenter, a longshoreman, or a fireman. That's pretty much where the family rode out, right?
I got you.
Yeah, but this is all I ever wanted to do. It's funny you say that you have a soft spot for generational firefighters, where I'm the complete opposite. That is great, and I'm very honored, but I always am curious as why people find the fire service, that first generation, like what drew them to this amazing thing we have, because it is a culture, it's a brotherhood, it's a family, but like no one really tells you that until you become part of it. And I'm always curious why. So what was your why? What brought you to it?
You see, I feel like with everyone I've had on the podcast, it's a 50-50 split. And I am one of the 50%. It's either what I've seen is they come out of the womb with a Halligan. I always joke around. My buddy Kevin Weiss literally was born and said, "Hey, I want to be a fireman." And that was it. Period. The end. His pops was a volunteer fireman. I'm the other half, where I wanted to be, as 5-year-old Steve, I wanted to be a fireman, a cop, or Air Force pilot. As I grew up later, things interest me. I joined the military right out of high school because I was an asshole, and that was pretty much the best option at the time to grow up. And then 6 years later said, "Oh shit, I got out. What am I going to do?" Hey, I went back to 5-year-old Steve, screwed up the Air Force pilot because I wanted to the Coast Guard, and literally said, "Hey, the city I was living in at the time, I'll apply to be a policeman or a fireman." I got hired by both. The fire academy started 6 months before the police academy did. That's how I made my educated decision. The craziest thing though, and I'm curious if you've come across this, I didn't realize I was meant to do this job till I started it. And then it was just like, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And I feel like most of my guests, they were either from day one, they knew they wanted to be a fireman, or they found it later on in life, most of the time by accident. Not getting hired was an accidental process. We all know it's extremely hard to get hired. It's a lot easier now, but especially 20, 30 years ago, In our generation, it was definitely a lot harder, but it's like you just find that calling later on in life. And I think most of us feel the same way. Once we got on the job, it's like, I could not imagine doing anything else. I would have been a disgruntled police officer. I probably would have shot a bunch of dudes for sure, because my patience with the public, as you know, it wears thin after a while. Yeah. So that was, I did it by accident, but then again, I was lucky enough to fall into it. Thank God, because I couldn't imagine doing anything else, brother, for sure.
You're absolutely lucky that you chose the fire side over the police side, right? I mean, that's real luck right there.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking 2005. So in 2005, our brothers in blue. I'll tell you what, like we joke on them. I do love them with the deep passion, but it's just a different fucking culture for sure. It is that more lone star, whatever you want to do, badass Billy, whatever you want to call it. But it's nothing, in my opinion, it is nothing like what we have, which is a family, crews of 4 to 5 guys that you pretty much live with and you know everything about. I don't feel like the police have that. At least on the West Coast where I'm at now, they even offer like signing bonuses. So someone will get hired in city number A, right? We'll say city of Phoenix. They'll do 2, 3 years as a police officer there, and then the city of whatever comes in and say, "Hey, bro, come on over as a lateral. We'll give you 10 grand signing bonus." They go over there, they do 2, 3 years, and they go. And then on the West Coast here in the state of Arizona, it's a state pension system, so they don't lose anything. They're literally shopping departments, and no shame on those guys for sure. It's different on the fire side. It's more you commit to a family and a culture, and I think most guys, not everybody, but most guys stick out the long haul of 25 to 30 years. I don't know how you guys. I feel like it's probably even more ingrained where you're at, boss. What do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I work with guys that have 40 years. They could leave at 20. They can't leave. It's the hardest job in the world to leave because it's not just a job. It's funny. People say, the job, and it's not a job. It's the
Right.
job because, in our opinion, it's the only job that exists, right? But yes, the why, and the why was because I was a third generation firefighter. But the how, that's important. And as you just said, it was during our time trying to get on the job. How hard that really was. Like, you could wanna be a doctor. If you commit yourself to med school, you'll become a doctor. As
Mhm.
long as you do the work, you put in the work, you're gonna become a doctor. Become a teacher, go get an educational degree, you become a teacher. You wanna be a fireman, you can do everything right, and it doesn't always work out for you. That was something looking back that I wish I didn't do. I put all my eggs in one basket, and I
Mhm.
had my eye focused on the FDNY. That was it, sole purpose, that was it. There was no other department in my eyes. I missed a lot. I think maybe those younger years just waiting. I did a lot and I lived a lot of life waiting, but I was waiting and waiting and waiting. So my advice to many now is just take the test and then go on with life like you never took it. Enjoy your life. And then if they call, you're lucky enough because I started to realize like I put all my eggs in this basket and I didn't go away to college. I worked at the family business. I went to community college. I did all my credits, all that. Maybe I should have went to San Diego and surfed every day. Like, I had friends that did. But no, I was working in the family business, waiting to become a fireman, moving to the city, bartending, like just living a fun life, but just waiting for that call. Thank God it came, but it wasn't guaranteed.
Okay, and we tell guys now because, and I'm curious with New York City because I know it's still super competitive. So when you took the test, we're talking 25 years ago. How many guys took that test?
I think it was 80,000.
Okay. So
Something.
now, what are your numbers now? Are they still 80?
No, no, I don't know, but they're not nearly as high as that. I'm going to say 30, 40, maybe, if that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So less than half. We're
Yeah.
the same. So I mean, in the department I tested, and they capped it. So like at midnight when they announced online, you had to sign up real quick, and they capped it at 1,500. So if you're a 1501, sorry, we're just
1,500. Wow.
yeah. So that was it. It was just 1,500 guys. But now, we're lucky if we get 400 or 500 guys to apply. We're still hiring the same number, which is, I mean, not numbers like you guys hire. We're talking about 10, you know,
Mhm.
10 to 20 a year. Um, so the odds are, I guess, equivalent ish, but now so I work at a regional training academy. So we train 11 to 15 different city departments. So there'll be 5 guys from one city, 10 guys from another city, 30 guys from another city, whatever the case might be. But we make it a point, And this is because of how society is. And again, my personal opinion, and you almost hit the nail on the head. You said it without saying it. It's like, if you want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor, right? If you want to be a fireman, it doesn't guarantee if you do everything correct, you will be a fireman, period, the end. And we even tell them day one of the academy, hey, this is the last part of the hiring process. You don't have the job yet.
Yeah.
You're on payroll, you're getting paid, you're a recruit, but there is no guarantee that you made it here that you will graduate. And it is, and I've seen, we have failed more people in the last 5 years than I've ever heard of before. And I believe, again, just my opinion, it is because of the quality of candidates we have. And no shade on the guys coming into the job, but hey, man, I saw you guys were advertising on Instagram. I just got my EMT 6 months ago and I put in, right? And hey, I'm a solid dude, so I do really well in the interviews. We go through a whole physical process. I'm a stud because I've been working out because I'm young and in shape. And now I'm sitting in the fire academy. And culture's different from east to west. I started in the Baltimore region, so I understand East Coast. I do not understand New York City, obviously, but it's just a different world. And so we tell them, like, hey man, there's no guarantee. And we hold a pride in the academy now as the last part of the hiring process, because just because you want to be a fireman doesn't mean that you are physically capable, but they could be a doctor, like you said, like just because you put your mind to it doesn't mean that you could be a fireman one day. And again, these are all just personal opinions of mine, but I've seen it shake out multiple times over and over again.
Yeah, the next generation coming onto the job, they're smarter than I think our generation ever was. And
Oh yeah.
some of our like have master's degrees coming from Ivy League schools becoming New York City firemen today. It's insane. Like teaching guys from Notre Dame and Yale and Harvard, and now they're firemen. And their parents must be really proud of that, right? But I mean, the difference though, from what I'm seeing, is that they are extremely smart, but it is the generation of me. It's that me culture that we're dealing with, and it's hard to have them come in and realize very, very quickly that this job is bigger than you as an individual. Individualism in this generation today is more prevalent than it ever was with us growing up, and I find that is the challenge for us, um, to break that mold per se, or to break that persona of these guys coming in, and that transformation of, yes, this is excellent, this is bigger than me, and they fall in love with that. A lot of guys don't fall in love with it. A lot of guys say this isn't for me because, you know, for probably selfish reasons. And that's not a broad stroke. That's not across the board, but that's what I've seen the struggles with. And that's why I think we need to do more recruiting as far as athletes. I love the vets. The vets are great. They understand it as well, but we don't focus so much on athletes. Athletes understand so many things about firefighting simply because it parallels almost identically with teamwork and practice, commitment, standard, but understanding where you fit in is very important too. Like any sport, football, hockey, baseball, basketball, it's understanding 10 steps ahead of you. So if you're running a play in football and you're in the huddle and, we're throwing the ball to Steve. All right, Steve gets the ball. Now everyone else lines up and everyone goes out because we have to run the play. It's the same thing as the fire building. Steve's getting the ball, but we have to go through the motions in case Steve is now being covered. We can throw an audible, have a pivot, and then hit John on the left because he's open. But if the roof man doesn't make the roof because he feels that, there's not much going on, it's just a food on the stove, and then all of a sudden now it's in the pipe chase and it's in the cock loft when we have a multiple alarm fire. If John doesn't run the play to the roof and get into position, well, then we're in trouble because the job is bigger than you. We have to fit in. We all have to expect each other to fit in and fill those gaps. And I think that's why we need to, again, focus more on athletes coming into the job and not so much just going out and handing out applications on the subway like they do in New York City. So it's a challenge. It is. But I have to say that the generation now is smarter and brighter than we ever were. We just have to make them realize how lucky they are to have this.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's instilling the pride and the tradition of the job into these young kids. And that's what I take great pride in attempting to do to the best of my ability, because I believe that. And you said it, it's just because I might not be the star player that day. That's okay, right? It is about, like you said, the greater good, the team winning. Like us winning is we put the fire out, right? We make as many grabs as we can, and then hopefully everyone gets to go home at the end of the day. That's winning the game. But like you said, just because I didn't get the knob or I didn't get the hole, whatever it is, the ball, right? It doesn't mean that it was not a good job that day. I played my key part in case things went sideways or it escalated, whatever the case might be. But hey, Billy is a stud. He's on the knob. He got a quick knock. And then I did need to get a hole. And, I have no right to be up on the roof pissed off that I didn't get the cut, because it's like, hey, we did a good job. Fire went out. We were aggressive. Everything's good. It's a team, like you're saying. And the crazy thing is we don't see a lot of athletes anymore, not as much as we used to, because we even ask them, like day one, we'll say, who's played organized sports? Please raise your hand. And out of the academy class of 65 guys and girls, 7. It was the last class that raised their hand. And I'm like, 7. I'm thinking 7 did not, 7 did. And then the craziest thing is the majority were professional this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like world class, like literally, like some guys were like, hey, I'm world ranked. I'm like, world ranked in what? Like it's different. But then, and I'm curious on what you think about this, because us now as instructors, it is completely different. We have to teach differently too than we were taught, because you and I were taught, hey kid, X, Y, Z, this is how we do it. Period. The end. Don't fucking ask me why. We do it because this is how we fucking do it. And again, I'm curious on the culture with New York City now compared to when you came up, because I know the culture East Coast to West Coast is different, but I feel like with society now, generation, I hate the word generational, because we have guys in our academy that are 40 and 19. So,
Oh, wow.
it's, I hate to say generational. So I still haven't found the right word. I kind of lean towards society today's day and age, but they want to know the why. And that's okay, because I do honestly believe that we're making them better firemen total, because we're explaining all the ins and outs, but they require that now, I feel like, to get buy-in. Where you and I were, hey, we were told by the senior guy or by the boss, and it was gospel. And 20 years later, we could have realized that guy was a fucking idiot. We had no idea at the time. And it might have been bad information, but we ran with it. So I see the positives of both. But culturally, with you guys, especially in your position, with having a platform and everything else, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like that why is necessary? Or is it just, I'm just curious on your insight on the newer generation coming in on the teaching aspect of them to get them up to speed, because you're a boss on the truck right now. So how does that work for you?
I love the why.
Okay.
Those who challenge the why don't fully understand the game. And that's the bottom line, because you're intimidated by why. The why is good, because the why, we talk theory and experience, but the why blends that together. So, well, this is why, and this is why I believe this because of my experience. If you just tell someone to do it, they're never going to fully understand the mistakes you made to have the experience for the theory behind why I just told you to do something. It's as simple as, and this is the challenge when you said we have to tweak how we teach a little bit, is when I came on the job, it was, here's a partner saw, cut the roof, cut the roll down, right? Today, it's like, this is gasoline, this is oil. You put them together. It's a cool mixture. This is how you start the saw, and you go through the steps. When I first have realized that this was a problem we were having, I was not angry. I was kind of beside myself, however, but we always had that with the hardcore city kids, like the urban city kids who grew up in the projects, came on the job, fell in love with the job. They're my favorite ones who found the fire service for whatever reason, and it saved them, right? But they're the ones we always had to do baby steps. This is fuel, this is oil, blah, 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 because they never had to mow the lawn, right? They were never out using a chainsaw. But now we have the kids from the suburbs and upstate. It's like they don't understand it either, because they're professional video game guys. They're not out there working for the landscaping companies or pumping gas. They don't understand. So that's a frustrating challenge, but it's all good. It's still the same job. It's a great generation coming in. Again, we just have to make sure that we maybe break down the why to the basics of why we do things, and then blend it with experience and theory.
I would kill to just know, and it's impossible, if we had platforms like we have now, podcasts, internet, $1,000 computers in our pocket. I would die to hear the guys that taught us on how much shit they talked about us. And I say shit as in like how dumb we were, or how much they had to explain to us because of everything we're saying. Like, and obviously there's no platform for that, but I would be curious, because I've talked to old timers that their senior firemen were World War II vets,
Yeah.
and they were basically our we're a bunch of pussies, because those guys were legit men. And it's I kind of feel like every generation kind of complains about the next one. They were never as good or never as strong or aggressive, whatever the case might be. But I mean, there's been some eye-opening moments, and you sparked you sparked a story in my head. It was I had a kid, and I wish I was lying about this, but the 50-1 gas mix container was half full. So he thought that was 25-1. So he filled it back up to full with just gasoline to make it back to 50-1. And I'm like, so that's why we blew this all up. And I'm like, I almost didn't believe it at first because I'm like, there's no way. But in in his brain, that made fucking sense because that was math. It was 25-1 because it was half. So he had to fill it back up with just gas to make it back to 50-1. I'm like, oh my fuck.
Yeah.
We're missing a couple things here. So with all that, so let's get into and excuse me, please explain the audience with your podcast and everything else and your Instagram, a very successful Instagram. I've been following it from basically day one since I got on the platform. So top floor tactics, where did that come from? What was the brainchild? Was it like, did you feel like something was missing, or did you just want a platform, or were you just trying to give more knowledge? Explain to the audience how that started, or where you started it, I should say, and then where you're at right now. And then we'll get into where you want it to be, boss.
So I think, yeah, what was missing was inside me. That's what was missing. I hit a slump in my
Okay.
career, and it was hard thing to understand that, like, how can I love something so intimately and so passionately, and then not be over it, but thinking about, well, what's next? What else can I do? Because I was in a great, great, great company going to a lot of fires with great men, and something was just missing. There was a void space, and I'm not quite sure what it was. I know what it is now is that we all have one, but that was the first time it hit me. And that was around probably 16 to 17 years on the job, where I was just like, well, I don't really want to retire at 20, but maybe I should. And I started thinking about things. So one day I'm in my garage and just flicking through Instagram, whatever. And I never followed a social media fire account ever in my life. Like, I didn't even know they existed, to be honest with you. I didn't know their podcast. I didn't know anything because I didn't know there was a subculture of a society that I loved so much because I was so ingrained with the FDNY. That's all I knew. And that's kind of a detriment to my job is that that's all we know because we're so big, we can get lost in it. It's good and bad. We don't let anyone influence what we do, which is good and bad as well. But that was kind of my mindset. There was nothing else out there. It's the department I grew up in, the volunteer department that I started out as a kid in, and then there was the FDNY, and nothing else in the world mattered to me. So on that evening, I was down there having a couple of beers, scrolling, and now I'm on YouTube. I'm in YouTube, and I would watch this old Rescue 3 video, the one that had Bob Presler and everyone. I think it's called, I forget the actual name. It was on Discovery Channel. And they do a documentary with Rescue 3. And Bob, being a good friend of mine now today, I always looked up to him because of that video. Like, he was like the main character per se in the video, you know? And now being dear friends with him, it's kind of ironic. But rewatching that, thinking to myself, how did I lose the love of the game? Like,
Mm.
I loved it, but like it just wasn't the same. And then it scrolled on to the next one, and it was a podcast, and it was Jeremy from National Fire Radio, who's again become one of my closest friends today as well. I'm like, look at this clown. What is this? And I watched it. And I'm like, you know what? It's kind of cool. And like, I watched it, and I watched a couple more episodes you had, and I was like, there is a subculture out there, I guess. So then I went back to Instagram, put firefighting like hashtag or whatever. I don't even know what a hashtag was then, and a couple things popped up. There weren't many, and started reading. And I said, wow, there is a life outside the FDNY. And this is crazy to me. You know, kind of blew in my head. Started reading up, started to read a couple different passages from different people. I'm like, this is pretty good knowledge on here. And I had a stack of journals sitting right next to me. And I've kept a journal since day one because in my job, when you come out of Proby school and you come to the firehouse, your education continues every day where you have to keep a journal every day. You come to work and you write in your journal and you have write everything that you learned, everything that you know, the mistakes you made, fires you went to, and then the officer has to read it and sign it. The battalion chief comes by, he reads it and signs it. And it's just a way to continue your learning from the academy. I continued that throughout my career because I enjoy writing. One day I wanted to write a book, not necessarily about firefighting, but that was always my dream. So I took all these notes of all these fires I went to, every single fire pretty much ever went to. I've written some piece on, whether it be 2 lines, 1 word, a paragraph, or 2 pages, or something I could reflect back on. So I started to write 6 or 7 short little, not articles, but Instagram posts. And I put them out within a few days in a row on Instagram, and I made up this name, Top Floor Tactics, and mainly because during that time, the year we had a bunch of top floor fires and cocklaw fires in these big H type buildings where my old response area was, and we were just doing a lot of top floor work. So top floor tactics was just natural. It just kind of came. I was on the treadmill at the academy, and never forget, and just popped in my head. I'm like, I kind of like that. I Googled it. There was nothing out there from it. I said, oh, I'll go with that. And then I launched it. And when I launched it, I blocked everyone I knew, everyone in my firehouse, anyone that I possibly knew that was a fireman. I blocked them all from it because you know how this job is. At least my job is. It's like really hard to put yourself out there. And I did it under an alias name, but I blocked the fact that anyone might see that. So it went off pretty well. People started seeing it. And then guys at work started talking about it, guys I didn't know. And I was like, oh shit, people are actually seeing this stuff. You know, I'll be at the kitchen table and they're talking about, hey, you see this post from this whatever on Instagram? So then it got wind that it was me, and the guys in my firehouse are like, what's wrong with you? Why are you hiding knowledge from us, the guys that you go to fires with? Like, you know how the job is. Like, firemen love to hate another fireman. And
Oh yeah.
so that was a big hurdle for me to do it. Looking back, I can't believe I did it. But time went on, and then I had to realize that I going to put a name to it, because when I am putting information out there, and that's as more, platforms started to come out, no, you can't vet anybody on social media. So I said, well, let me put my name to this. That way I can own what I'm saying, because anyone can say anything they want. So put Mickey Farrell to it, Top for Tactics, and that was a big step. And then eventually I put the photo to it, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. And here I am now, 8 years later, doing it. So that was the kind of the beginning of how it happened. Like, yes, what was missing, it wasn't so much the fire service, it was inside of me. And it kind of gave me a rebirth back into the job. And I'm forever grateful for my friends along the way that I met. And my life is so different than I ever imagined 8 years later because of it.
It's crazy too. And I'm curious. I have a follow-up question to kind of what you're saying. And I hope you know the answer, because I've been trying to figure it out every day since I pretty much stepped foot into a firehouse. Why? Why do we hate on each other so much when somebody tries to do something out of the quote unquote norm? I can't fucking figure it out. And we see it all the time here. If guys are in a department that, let's say, is less traditional, more of a job than a profession, if that makes any sense, because there's a couple smaller departments around us that have been like that over the years. As soon as there's a top charger or somebody that's just into the fucking job, they will beat him down senseless until he almost submits. The only thing that I can think of is almost like what you were saying before. You're putting maybe somebody on blast that you might, a young guy or a rookie, or even just a dude that maybe isn't from the area, maybe knows more about a subject than you do, and you might be embarrassed, so you're just gonna shove him down to hide your incompetency. I don't fucking know. I'm just guessing at this point because I can't figure it out. Any clue on your end why we love to just fucking eat each other across the nation? Yeah, but it seems like it's specific more to the American Fire Service than any other profession out there. Like I've never seen a commercial or went on an Instagram ad or whatever for a lawyer and he's dissing another lawyer. They're just saying how good they are, but they're not just saying at the fucking Mickey's fucking lawyer company, they suck, he's an idiot. He only has 24 years on the job. I got 30 years. Go with Steve-O's lawyer group. They don't do that, but we do. I just can't figure out why.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer for that. I have some ideas, but as far as a positive answer, I think a lot of it is insecurity, intimidation. People try to force this at times, and that's what we have to remember, is that if you are listening and you want to start a training company, you want to get into the quote unquote circuit or whatever, it has to happen natural. You cannot force it. It comes from a series of mistakes, but here's the problem. Type A personalities, they have a really hard time owning humility. Now, on the fire ground, we are all type A or you're dead. It's the way it is. To survive in conditions on the fire floor and the floors above, you have to be type A. You have to be commanding and demanding to do the job right. The firehouse, not so much, but sometimes we have to turn that off in the firehouse. The type A personality, it's really, really difficult. I find by turning off that type A, and what's given me somewhat of respect or a value I feel in my content is because I talk about my mistakes. That's important. Humility is the forward progression of today's American fire service, from my job to your job and everything in between. But finding that level playing field of humility is very, very difficult. I think that's what the problem is that we don't allow humility into the firehouse world. We're not talking about our mistakes. So when you don't talk about your mistakes, how can you get better? Well, you get better by ego, and we appreciate people push their ego upon you. That's where the hate's coming from because we are ego based. Like just in nature, what we do, it's ego based and aggression driven. So that's why we hate on each other because of insecurities. And you know, the fire ground and the fire flow and the floors above, that's always the deciding factor, right? So by not going to them in some places more frequently than other places, they're usually the loudest ones because they can never truly prove themselves. I'm a big believer in letting your tools do your talking. That's the way you defend what you're doing. And the ones that are out there trying to force feed you quote unquote knowledge, but without any fires and real experience to back it, that's where we get to a little bit of trouble as far as I think on the grand scheme of things. I can't think of anyone that comes to mind that does that, but I'm sure they're out there, and that is a problem. Again, we can't vet people. Social media has allowed us to build a platform on anything and everything we want to talk about in today's American fire service. We're really trying to reinvent the wheel in everything we do, from victim removal to the tools we use to helmets and everything in between. We're just reinventing and reinventing, and reinventing is good, but we can't forget the basics and the standards that are set. Problem is, a lot of places don't have standards in place. When I say standards, standards you have to rise to, and you rise to them by proving yourself on the fire ground.
I love it all the way around, and I wish more guys had insight like you do when it comes down to just the traditions and love for the jobs. And it's funny, like I had a battalion chief from my state on not too long ago, and he said, "Hey, Steve, you want to learn something new in the American Fire Service?" He goes, "Read an old book." And he's not wrong. Like it's everything's this pendulum, right? Like we're constantly swinging it, but it's like this new tactic or new tool. And it's funny, like I got myself a Kelly tool a couple months ago, right? That was invented in what, the 30s in New York City, something like that, prior to the Halligan. Um, and it's like this, I don't even know what to call it, like this unicorn around here. Everyone's like, what the fuck is that thing? Right? I'm like, it's a Kelly tool. And like, a what? I'm like, you'll know the history behind this. I'm like, this is before the Halligan. You know, I got it just as a quick little officer tool because it's a short little 24-inch, right? It obviously doesn't have the spike on it. So it's just for my tool compilation, I feel like it works better for me. That's the only reason I carry it. Not saying it's better than any other tool out there. It's just my preference, but it's funny in the American Fire Service and just shows you how quickly we let go of some of our traditions, or more importantly, our history, by not knowing things like that. So then you present it and they're like, what the fuck is that thing? Well, that thing's been around for 100 years almost, right? Like almost, and it's hard for me to, well, shame on me for not just educating the guy instead and be like, hey, this is what it is. It's actually pretty cool. Here, go fuck with it, right? If you hate it, you hate it. If you love it, they're only like $200. I'll tell you the website I got it from, like, but whatever. It's always for us around here, we're always trying to make the job more accessible, but more, allowing guys, I should say, allowing guys to be into it without slamming them down. I mean, that's why out here we created the Fools chapter, because we didn't have one in our state, and we literally created it because of the lack of culture and tradition that was out on the West Coast compared to where I came from on the East Coast. And we literally sat down with like 10 guys in my department that were all transplants from either Chicago area, Baltimore area, Philly area, all those big department areas. We had all migrated because of life over to the West Coast, and what we had missed the most was guys like you that were steeped in tradition. And it's like, how do we start trying to get this back to where we are now? And it was just, hey, let's create a Fools chapter and allow guys to go to meetings and have another culture within our culture of like-minded individuals. And that where they could feel like, hey, they could have one day on the job off probation and they could teach me something for sure, and vice versa. The guy with 30 years can teach me something, but I just want to hear something from everybody. And I'm just curious, in your area, is it still like that, or are guys more secluded now than they've ever been?
It's a good question, and it's much better than it ever was.
Okay.
I would say 20 years ago, it was a lot more cutthroat as far as breaking free of the mold or going beyond the job. seeing what else is out there per se. We've gotten so much better with that, and that's because of social media and the platforms, but guys doing the right thing. I really haven't had any pushback. One or two things here and there from my job from guys, and for the most part, it's been a great experience. It's definitely a huge responsibility because I'm still working. I'm still going to fires every day, and I have to be able to separate it if that makes sense. And sometimes it gets hard because of social media, and then putting your face out there, and then your voice, and then your name. So that's been a challenge, but I have had really no negative pushback, and so that tells me things are trending for the better. And also, long before I ever put a name and face to it, was just the top floor tactics. I would have guys reach out to me, and we would talk fire. We would go back and forth and tactics. Hey, brother, we had a fire here, and we don't know who each other are. We're just talking about, hey, we had a fire in Brooklyn last night. Check this out. Oh, I had a fire in the Bronx. Check this out. What'd you do here? I thought about this. And then I'm realizing as this is happening, I'm creating a subculture within the job, and everyone's still talking tactics. And I think for me, it was a wake up call that we are trending in the right direction, at least within my job. I think the smaller jobs, it's a bit more challenging because, believe it or not, that shift culture. Most departments have shifts. We don't have shifts. We have tours, and guys rotate within the tour. That makes us a personality with many people. Where I think shifts become very competitive. Firehouse is not competitive within the firehouse. We're a family, we're a brotherhood. A shift can be a family, but it's very competitive because it's like a family in the sense where you're competitive with your brother. With us, we're brothers, firefighting brothers. I'm talking about you're competitive with your brother, like your brother that you grew up with. Two very different kinds of brothers, one with love, one with being competitive. I think the smaller the department with the shift concept makes it really, really hard to break out of that negative culture, if that makes sense at all.
No, it does. And right now in the department I work for, I had been told that we used to have, I can't remember what they said, like six different departments within our department. They said now we have two. And I'm curious if you guys are similar or if you're seeing it. We have what they're calling sub 15 and over 15. So basically guys that have less than 15 years on the job in our department, not total, and guys that have 15 or more in our department. And after I was told that, kind of sitting back thinking about it and really like paying attention to how people react and everything else, I'm like, they're not, I agree with it a lot. Where it's the sub 15 are these hard chargers. They're seeking the why. They want to teach. They're literally, after a couple years on the job, trying to figure out how they can give back to their department more by being involved in training cadres and getting spun up on different modalities so they can start teaching and everything else. Where the over 15 for the majority are like, hey, everything is great. It's worked for the last 100+ years for us. Why in the world would we even consider changing anything? I'm talking from tool compilations to tactics to everything under the sun. Hey, man, it's always worked. Why would we even entertain thinking about it? And always trying to argue that fact because I hit 20 years in January, but I only have 9 years with the department I'm in right now. So I'm that sub 15. And I do have that mindset of I want to know why for everything, because if there's a more efficient way to do something, I want to do it. And I don't want to do it that way because it's more efficient. Honestly, I want to do it that way. And I tell guys this candidly because if I'm more efficient, that means I'm more badass. I want to be a more badass fireman every fucking day. And I think if you don't want to be that, then it's probably time to retire if you don't want to try to constantly improve. But I'm curious, in your guys' culture right now, are you seeing similar to what we are on the West Coast, or is it completely different because you guys are just this dinosaur of a department that just is able to maintain itself because you guys are so fucking huge and aggressive, and you get the work on a consistent basis and you have the rep, like everybody knows FDNY, obviously. So you guys kind of see that little shift, like the years could be different. It could be 20 and under and over 20 or whatever, but do you kind of have a separation right now? Because you're saying you don't have shifts, you have tours. So outside of that, do you have that experience separation or at least time on the job separation?
I mean, yeah, we have guys with 40 years and guys with 2 days, but it's there's real no, yeah, there's guys that are into the job, and then there's guys that aren't into the job, but they do their job. And then there are guys that just don't do anything, right? They show
Yeah.
up at work and then they sit on the couch, they get on the rig, and And listen, man, if that's you, I'm fine with that. You better be able to perform at a fire. Don't participate in anything we do. Don't come to the boys' night out. That's fine. If that's who you are, I'm not going to force this job down your throat. And I learned that over the years, trying to force this job upon people, force the love for it. You can't force someone to be in love with something. So some people, it is just a job, but fucking be good at your job.
Mm.
That's the problem we have. But as far as my job, we are obviously a very large job. We have guys, like I said, in it and that's out of it. But as long as you protect the values of it, we all kind of meet in the middle, if that makes sense. If you protect the values of the brotherhood, the legacy, the culture, and the traditions of the job, you really can't say anything about guys wanting to do better, being more proficient on their tactics because they're bettering the job. I think that the problem is when the senior guys see the next generation not protecting the values and the standards that they may have set. I mean, we can change the standard, we have to be able to rise to the standards that were already there. That's probably some of the frustrations I would believe with the guys that have 15 to 20 in your job looking down on the 5-year guy saying, this kid just doesn't understand like all the mistakes and all the late nights and all the tears that I've shed for this department. And he's willing just to shit on it because he wants to change it and be more proficient. Well, there's a reason why we do things. Come to meet in the middle and have that conversation. You know what I mean?
No, I do. Absolutely. And the only thing I think that we have a big advantage on in today's day and age is, and you had mentioned it a little bit ago, but like you have what is believed to work, tactics, SOPs, everything under the sun. Like, hey, our department runs this way because of these are our building types, these are the jobs we have, everything else. But I feel like now we have a lot of science that backs a lot of our tactics that we've been doing for fucking years. That's like, all right, now I understand it more. Or, and again, this is a personal opinion, I believe the science allows us, as long as we take it how it is, allows us to be more aggressive and promote the staffing levels that we try to maintain and everything else, because staffing levels where you work are amazing. Staffing levels where I work are really, really fucking good too. But shit, I came back from Mississippi a couple months ago, and there was like guys from all over that state that was at that conference. And there was one dude I talked to. Most were very small departments. I'm talking like 2-3 houses in their entire department. That's it. Some were like single houses. But I ran into this one guy. He's like, oh yeah, I got like 14 houses. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Now we're starting to talk. Driver only, bro, out of every single house. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, how many guys are actually they're all by themselves in the house too. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And that's a unsupported state issue, but it's just, I lost where I was even going with that just because I was so disgusted with the staffing levels. But this, the science behind it, I kind of feel like it helps promote being more aggressive, adding the guys. Like, and I had a guy on that works for Chicago, and he literally says, hey, Steve-O, he's like, we fucking beat the fire with manpower, literally into submission. If we can't fucking put it out, we add more guys and more guys and more guys and more guys. And I fucking love that. I don't hate that at all. Some guys are like, no, that, I don't agree with that, but the science backs it up. Like, the more guys we can get on scene in a rapid succession, the faster we can put the fire out, the faster we can open it up, the faster we can deem it safe, quote unquote safe for us and the victims, victims first. But it's crazy because I think a lot of guys, some of the older guys, and I say some of them because it's definitely not all of them, believe that science is the opposite of that, which is like the devil. Like, hey, because we've always done it this way, and now we're maybe changing the tactic that they love or they bled for, or maybe they fucking sucked at for their first 10 years and they finally got it under their belt. And now we're telling them we're going to take it away and introduce something else that they have to learn. I don't know. It's just, again, these are all just conspiracy theories I have because we are trying to collectively as a group just make the American Fire Service as good as possible and really instill that love of the job. And it's funny that you even said that too. Like, you can't force someone to love anything. And as soon as you said that, I kind of was reflecting on myself because I've done that before. Trying to force someone to love this job as much as I love it, because I do fucking love every ounce of this fucking profession. And it's hard to run into or work next to the guy that doesn't. I feel like sometimes where you're like, bro, like, why don't you, then you start looking at yourself like, why do I love this job so much? And my brother next to me, who I like as an individual, literally is punching the clock. Like you're saying, he doesn't want to do anything except for sit in a recliner. He'll run calls and he's good on calls. Cool. Right. We're buddies. but like, why isn't there that passion? And you said it, like, you can't force someone to love this job. And I don't think anybody's ever said that before. So that definitely hit home with me for sure.
Yeah, and circling back to what you were saying, when you talk science, are you talking about like UL studies, or are you talking about just fire?
Everything in general, yeah, UL studies, of course, but I mean, really, like all the studies they've done about flow paths, because there's been a lot of misnomers, or I should say misnomers. There's been a lot of knowledge that's been blessed upon us when we were young in this job. That was just because that's how it is, right? There is no real information behind a kid. Hey, when I cut a hole, right, it's going to create lift and pull all that crap out. It's going to make conditions better. Well, now we know with the science, it's creating a flow path. We're feeling cool air rush above while we're getting water on the fire. And yeah, everything gets better unless the guy on the knob doesn't get to fucking see the fire while we're cutting the hole. Like, there's just a lot of things where we were telling, it was almost like, hey man, I told you this because I've experienced it, because I've been in those fires where it's happened. I'm telling you it happened, but there was nothing that supported that. And I feel like when you take a guy and say, hey man, we need to ventilate, and you maybe have a command officer that says absolutely not, because maybe he was an admin guy that just promoted really fast through the ranks. I don't know. Or he was at really slow stations that just didn't have jobs, run the work. And he's going, I don't think so. And that hard charger is going, yes, because I've been there multiple times. That's kind of where I'm going. Now we have the science to provide, saying, no, I am creating a flow path that's going to be beneficial, and I have the data behind to back that up, where I never had it before. And they could say, hey, Steve, you're just a fucking hard charger. That's why you want to do it. No, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it because it's going to make conditions better for the victims, for the firemen, because of this. And I have at least a little education to back it up, instead of just saying, bro, I felt it, or I've been there. Does that make sense, brother?
Yeah, no, and what we have to instill in every firefighter, from the first probie coming in and all the way up to the senior guy, is firefighter IQ. Firefighter IQ is the X's and O's of firefighting. So we can talk staffing levels all day long. We can debate staffing versus, your staffing, my staffing, to department that has 2 guys on the rig. It's still the same game. So analogy I always say is that we've all played basketball, whether it be organized rec or high school, college, or down the playground or the park, just shooting hoops with your buddies. But when you're in the playground in the park, not too often you're playing 5-on-5 full court press. You're playing 2-on-2, 3-on-3, but you're still playing the game of basketball, and you're still understanding when to pivot on the court to fill in the gap to make the basket. So firefighter IQ is the same thing, is that we have to be able to look at the fire building and understand the tempo of the game, or the tempo of the fire, and then pivot to fill in the gaps. That's firefighter IQ. So you can have 3 guys that are fire or 30 guys that are fire. The same jobs have to get done, but when you can't perform them all because of lack of staffing, we have to understand the priority of jobs to do. And that's understanding the game. How we understand the game, unfortunately, it's by the love of the game. And when you don't truly love the game like we love the fire service, our standards and our IQ level is lowered. So that's the problem you have when you're dealing with firefighters that don't truly, truly love the game. When I mean love the game, we all love going to fires. I haven't met a fireman that doesn't like to go to fire. But the true love, like when you really love the game, that's you and I talking right now. You know, different parts of the
Okay.
country, comparing ideas. It's you get off, you're going to read some material tonight. You're going to maybe listen to another podcast. You're going to go on Instagram. You're going to read a quick post because you're studying the game. When you don't study this game and truly love it, like I said, when the tones go off, everyone loves it. But you have to love it leading up to that moment. That's where the success comes from. And I think that's how those 2 generations were, from the senior guy to the 5-year guy, like you said, where now we're having that stalemate. If we all understand the IQ, we could kind of meet in the middle, and that's how fires go smoothly.
Oh, I love it. And thank you for kind of marching that out for everyone listening, especially myself too, because it it helps bring light to some struggles that I've run across in my career so far. But hopefully that helps somebody that's listening to this too. When we to kind of pivot a little bit, when you start talking about top floor tactics, so we know how long you've been doing it for. We know how you started it. So where do you want this to go now? Because we're talking the love of the job right now, but where do you want your Instagram page, your company, your ideas? Like, where would be when you're done and you hopefully coast off to whatever your fucking dream is? Mine is gonna be on the Carolinas on the beach, board shorts and longboards is what I tell my wife all the time. That's It's gonna be my retirement one day, hopefully. When you're there, you know, at your pinnacle, where did you leave your company and say, man, I feel like I did a good job. Like I made a positive impact on the American Fire Service. Where is that end goal for you right now with your company, brother?
See, I don't even consider this a company or anything beyond just me. That's again for people that are listening that are trying to get into the world of education and speaking and knowledge and all of that. Don't read the comments. Interact with people. Don't let the negativity get inside you, and just be authentic. I think if anything, and what I'm proud of most is that I brought authenticity into the fire service and a different way of loving the job. And I'm sure people love it the same way and have the same interest I may do. But I put it out there for people to realize that all walks of life can love this job. And when I say all walks of life, we have like the societies. We have, the Emerald Society, the Columbia Society, the Vulcan Society, all these societies in our job. And they do great, great things for our job. I was just, I don't really love the idea of it because it separates the job, and we should just be one. I don't care if you're black, white, Chinese, if you're transgender, if you're gay, I don't care. You crawl down a hallway with me, I can't see you anyway. Do your job. We're doing this, brother. Let's go. And then afterwards, we can high five, have some laughs, have a beer, and share the love of the job. So I think if anything, when this is all said and done, and I don't know if it'll ever be done again because I don't look at it as a business or a company. I look at it as a passion that I made it okay for people to love the job and to love each other because I think true leadership comes from loving one another, humility and loyalty. There's so many leadership books out there, teach you how to be a leader and how to manage people under stress. And that's all important. And they're all great books. But when at the end of the day, it really just comes down to loving one another, respecting one another, and loving this job more than anything else in the world. That's what I hope people gain out of this at the end. That's all I really hope is that, you know, they understand that humility is the forward progression. And if you take anything away, take care of the job. You love it, you respect it, you nourish it. This job will always take care of you and your family for generations to come. And that's the main takeaway.
I love it. So take care of the job. It'll take care of you, and then take care of your brothers and sisters for the most part. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, like, and I say that all the time about, loyalty. If you're loyal to the job and loyal to one another, this job will always take care of you. And people push back and say, this job did not take care of me. When I say the job, I'm not talking about the city or the government or the politics. I'm talking about one another. That's what we have to remember. When I say the job, I talk about the family. I don't care what city it is, what town it is, volunteer, career, paid, whatever it may be. It's it's the love of the brotherhood. That goes from coast to coast around the globe. You take care of each other. It's the best insurance policy there is if we just invest a little bit into the love of the job and then the loyalty of it. If that makes sense, I don't know, but I think that's the main takeaway is that it really is greater than you as an individual. And that's what we have to remember. And that's what a lot of people struggle with everything in life. But treating this job with respect is the main takeaway.
Boss, I love that so much. And it's something that I wish it didn't take me so long to realize. And when I say it took me so long to realize, it was probably just a couple months ago when I finally realized that the guys, I say the guys, I mean the guys and the girls on the job, but the guys that I'm with every day or I run into most of the time, they're the most important people. It's not the city, like you said, or it's not the work. And I just realized that recently from listening to, I think it was an old retired guy from, I think it was Houston, Texas, but it was the same deal. He did like 35 plus years on the job, was a fucking asshole. His words, right? Promoted to battalion chief. He was a fucking asshole. He goes, and then he realized that he missed the biggest part of the job was the love of the boys, just like the camaraderie, just like you're saying, hey, we're going to fucking push down this hallway. And then afterwards, we're going to fucking high five and have some beers afterwards and just talk about it and make some jokes. And then we'll meet each other on the next tour. And I'm realizing now later in my career, I wish I understood that on day one. It's about, telling your brothers that you fucking love them, even when they're being an asshole to you, because you still do. Because again, it's unfortunately, at least in my region, we've lost a lot of guys recently. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, you don't know the next time you're going to be able to tell them that you love them. So might as well let them know, how much you appreciate them and, and they're with you every step of the way, because I think we take for granted that we're with the same people for, if we're lucky, 25 plus years. then and then we retire and we're gone. Like I can't even imagine what the retirees feel like, that they do this job and then one day happens and they don't do it anymore and they don't go back to the house. And I feel like that's got to be very difficult to kind of transition to the next part of your life. I don't know. This is kind of how I'm feeling lately, with almost, just shy of 20 years on the job now.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that, how you transition captain of my house and the engine right now. His last tour is Friday, 30 years.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't know how he can do it. I'm not The beauty of it is that you have to be able to make that decision, and God willing, it's on your own terms, that where the job doesn't, put you off for medical or whatever it may be, you get hurt. Leaving on your own terms, I think, is a great way, a really hard way, but a great way to walking away from this, saying, "I done good. I did all right with this. I'm okay with moving on," because it's your decision ultimately. But with everything, and I talk so much positivity and love and loyalty for the job, but you also have to look at this job like the ocean, and that sometimes the tide's in, sometimes the tide is out. It's not always the greatest job in the world. It will always be the greatest job, but in the moment, it can be the worst job. Morale's down, fire duty's low, you know, forced in on overtime, missing something with the kids. Sometimes the job sucks, but it's understanding that if we just ride the wave, eventually the tide will come back in and we'll fall back in love. But just know that if the tide's out right now and you're trying to find your way back to the love of the job, it's coming. Just ride it. I promise you it's coming. You just have to trust the process.
Yeah, I always refer to those as seasons, seasons in our career, where we have seasons where we're like, we're not into the job, or we're just disgruntled for whatever, like you're saying, our morale's low because either fire duty's low, or you got a brand new freaking chief or commissioner or whatever, and it's different, or you don't like them for whatever the reason is, or your new battalion is a fucking dickhead, whatever it is. But I wholeheartedly agree with you. If you just hold out long enough, you get to a much better season where you're remembering how much you love the job and how much fun it is, and how great the guys are, and everything else under the sun. So, dude, I appreciate so much of your time right now, dude. And I don't want to hold you up too long. I know we've been yapping for about an hour. So before we kind of transition into the last part of the episode, is there anything you want to leave the audience with that we haven't talked about, either with the top floor tactics, or just the love of the job in general right now?
Well, as far as top floor tactics, I do a lot of traveling. I'm all over the country with this. And if you do see something that I'm doing in an event and you're interested in coming, I highly recommend you do come, because it's not because I'm promoting a class. It's because I want to meet people that follow me, for one, ones that have supported the, Instagram and the podcast. But ultimately, my message in most of the classes I do, I go, I'd rather go, do whatever it is with the family that day. I promise you, if you come to the class, I will give you the rebirth that I needed to get back into the groove, because that tide went out and I was treading water out there with it out. And I think a lot of guys are treading water right now. Just take that wave in, the next wave that comes, ride it in. And I promise you, I'll be waiting for you. And I would wholeheartedly believe that you walk away from one of my classes falling back in love with the greatest job on earth.
Love it. So for everyone out there, please check out Mickey. He's one of the brothers, if you haven't figured it out by now, for sure. He loves his fucking job. He loves the fire department. He loves the boys. How can they reach you if they want to? So Instagram is Top Floor Tactics. Are you on any other platforms right now, sir?
I mean, actually, I want to clarify a little bit with that, is that I am on Facebook because it links with it, but I do
Mhm.
never check any messages because there's too many assholes in Facebook. I can't deal with them. Everybody telling me how they're the greatest firefighter in the world. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just Facebook, It just, the value in Instagram is just so much more authentic and genuine. You're dealing with people who really love it. It's amazing, the difference. It's crazy. Um, and what even crazier is that in Facebook, you don't really have alias accounts. People put their name in their face and they go in there and they break your fucking balls. You know what I mean? It's
They
like
they
on
do.
Instagram, they have alias accounts, but none of them really are breaking balls too much. It's a very different element. But if you do reach out on Instagram, if you DM me, I don't get them all the time because they go, whatever reason, when you get like the quote unquote, like a business account or whatever, it filters a lot of the messages. I'll go back and see I missed messages from like 6, 8 months ago that people must think that I'm not responding. I never see them. So Email's the best way. Topfloortactics@gmail.com. I still didn't get a grown up email. I still have the Gmail, but message me on there if you have any questions or if you want to talk about putting something together. I will be on the West Coast quite a bit coming into 2026. I'm in California 4 or 5 times. I'm going to be in Nevada. Wait, Nevada. That's how you say it, right? Because I said Nevada, I got yelled at. It's Nevada. I'll be back at the Fire Shows West in September again with those guys. So I am in the western part of the country more than ever before this coming into 2026. So I know that's where your podcast is based out of, the southeast, or sorry, the southwest. So that's where you can find me. I'll be out that way.
Perfect. Well, I'll tell you what, Mickey, for sure. As soon as I figure out your schedule and my schedule, I will make one of those 100%, especially if it's in California, because that's probably 4 or 5 hours for me, depending on what part of the state, obviously. But that sounds amazing.
Definitely in San Diego in July. I know that. That's the So I don't know how far that is from you, but the other ones are up in Northern California, I think, like San Francisco Bay Area, but
Okay.
definitely there in Southern California.
Yeah, Southern Cal, I could definitely make it to. Northern California is probably at least a day drive. Yeah, Southern California, no big deal. 4 or 5 hours probably. Like you talking San Diego area?
Yeah, it's actually in San Diego. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, perfect. That's pretty much where every fireman from my region goes for vacation all the time because it's a weekend trip. Easy.
love that place.
All right. Well, Mickey, listen, I appreciate you. So to transition time to the end of the episode here. So you're the first New York City fireman I've had on the show. So if you were to get your bread and butter fire, all right. So for your run area, I don't know what that is. So I'm not going to guess what it is. I'll let you tell me. So you get your bread and butter 95% fire. That doesn't raise goosebumps. You know, it's going to be a 1 or 2 line fire. It's going to be a quick job. It's going to be a good, easy job. How do you guys run that? Are you SOP driven? Is it IC driven? Are there predetermined running assignments? If you don't mind marching out, what would be your typical job in your area? And then how would that run, brother?
So what separates the FDNY, I feel, from any other department in the world is discipline. We are so position oriented and disciplined in how we gain position on the fire building that we all know where we're going. We get off the rig. There's no conversation, zero conversation. Everyone's just going into the position. Again, the firefighter IQ, the X's and O's of firefighting. It's legitimately running a play. So every building is a different play, more or less. So we have old log tenements, new log tenements, class 2 buildings, projects. We have this, my response area is very, very diverse in that sense. We can have everything. But the discipline comes from going to a project building. The play is different than if you go to a tenement building. It's very different. And now we break down to what floor the fire's on. Now the play call is a little bit different, and the tools are different, and how we're gaining the position on the fire becomes different. Now we throw in elements of forcible entry. We throw in elements of how we're getting to the roof. Throw in elements of people showing at windows. Again, now these are all audibles within the game, but it's a game that's never spoken about because there's so much discipline behind what we do. So let's go for an example. You want me to get down to like the nitty gritty details of something, or
Yeah, just run it like you would normally do. Like how for again, this is your bread and butter. This is not a huge deal. How many engines, how many ladders or trucks, how many chiefs, and then what are you guys actually doing? Above, below, on, whatever it is. Because I most of the time when I ask this question, it's your 95% bread and butter house fire. But I know I'm guessing the area you work in, you probably have more fires in not single family dwellings than anything else. So that's why I was kind of leaving it up to you on what your bread and butter is because I just don't know.
yeah, I'll give you a tenement, an old log
Yeah.
tenement. So these are very, very old buildings. They're fun fighting fires in these buildings. They're fast moving fires. They're class 3 non-fireproof buildings that are built at the turn of the century. So let's go with fire, top floor, old law tenement, 6 stories. Pull up, you're the first new truck. I'm getting off the rig with my inside team, my can, my irons. We're going in, we're forcing that lobby door if it's not already open. We're making our way up the stairs. We get to the top floor. We're confirming the fire apartment, whatever that may be. Let's say it's 6 Adam, letting the chief know fire apartment 6 Adam. We start forcing the door. Why that's happening, we're sizing up if we have multiple apartments on that floor. And if so, I'm having the can man take the bunning tool, which is our hydro ram, go to the off door, pop that door real quick if we can, have an area of refuge if something was to go wrong. Plus, we have to get into all those apartments because it's a top floor fire maybe in the cock loft, right? So now the secondary trucks can come in and fill those gaps in. They're going to force those other doors again to the other apartments. Once we force the door, the engine's stretching the line. The engine officer will come in, declare if there's a well hole or not. A well hole means that the will going up the stairwell.
Mhm.
We can stretch it up there, save one length to get to the top floor. Is a lot easier than going six lengths around six banisters to get up there. Once we get up there, moving into position again, position based firefighting. Now it's a top floor fire. We have the outside vent firefighter, which is the OV. For a top floor fire, the first due OV is now going with the roof man who's taking the rope to the roof, getting up there, dropping off the saw. Now this varies. Like this is how the book state it. Different neighborhoods, different companies do different things. But the bread and butter, how this book stated, is that now we're dropping off that saw as the inside team is searching for the fire. Inside team is the officer, irons, and can man. When going in, we're closing the door behind us and we're searching for that fire. At this point, the OV is now going to possibly either drop down to search the fire apartment or the off apartment. The second duo OV is going to the fire apartment to fill in that gap if that OV was to stay on the roof with the roof man. Sometimes you need two guys on the roof. Then the second due truck, that roof man's going up there as well. We're cutting a hole over the fire, obviously, checking for fire in the cockloft. That's a big, big problem. And if you see any of the fires in New York City, you see fire in the cockloft, right? Especially these big H type buildings. So it's very quick that we get a hole in that roof and confirm if fire is in the cockloft or not. Start water. Here comes the water. Why that's all happening as the truck officer. Now, this is where we get kind of lost in I feel, education of firefighting on from different departments or whatnot from a regional base. For us, and I think it's a pretty standard understanding of firefighting that we don't truly understand it a lot of times, is that my sole purpose of the first due truck officer is to find the seat of the fire. The can man, which is usually the probie, the can man who's carrying the 2.5 gallon water can, we're going to knock back the fire and we're going to isolate that room that's on fire within the apartment. People think that cans are for extinguishing fires. I get a kick out of it when you hear cancel the engine. I got the can, like people write it on the can. That's not a full understanding of what position based firefighting is. Once we hold that fire back, we can isolate the door. Now myself and or the irons guy is passing that room that's on fire. This is all happening ahead of a charged hose line or ahead of the hose line advancing. They're still stretching. They're calling for water. They're doing all these things while we're doing this all ahead of the line. Once we find that fire room, now we switch the understanding that we're searching for life. We're always searching for life, never dismissing that understanding of firefighting, but we have to find the fire because water on the fire saves more lives than anything else. And then, there's no way around that. So we can find the fire and isolate it. We're buying time. Time is a tool in the fireground. And if we can learn to manipulate and maneuver time within the moment, we're winning. You have to make back that time that we're losing. Isolate, we're buying time. Understanding, close the door behind us, buying time. Again, going back to flow path, firefighters are scared to manipulate a flow path per se, but for me, it's a disruption within a tactical movement, meaning that we can manipulate the energy in a fire building for our benefit. So we can change the flow path to let the fire present itself to us. If that makes any bit of sense. But going back to the progression of what we're doing, start water, here comes the line. Now, once we confirm that room that's on fire, I'm going either back to the apartment doors, the officer, or getting on the radio, depending on the situation, and saying, ladder one to engine one, it's down the hall, make a left. You have two rooms on the left. So you're mapping it out for the engine. And now, engine comes down, put the fire out, cut the roof. If we have fire in the cockloft, that is a very important transmission. Now we're going to a second alarm because now we can have fire into multiple buildings. For those of you that are listening that don't know the cockloft, I think most do, but I don't know if everyone does. So a cockloft is the void space between the upper part of the ceiling and the roof level. There's a void space where there's a significant fire travel, and that fire travel can go within the entire top floor of that building from apartment to apartment, and then eventually into other buildings on the exposures 2 and 4 or B and B side, right? So that's a pretty much basic tenement fire on the top floor. The second due engine for us is backing up the first due engine, backing up in the sense they're helping them stretch that line into position. And the third due engine and the fourth due engine, they're stretching the second line. That second line is going to go to the top floor once again into the other apartments if we have fire in the cockloft. So I don't know if I can totally confuse you with that, but that's pretty much the basics of what we're doing. What's pretty cool is like when I'm driving to the city and I see the city skyline, I see everything from the Freedom Tower to the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, brownstones, road frames, everything and everything in between. And I think about it, and it's like, wow, we have a playbook for every single building. We have a play to run, and that's why it's so important that we have discipline because um, the chief never really has to ask where you are or tells you where to go. He knows already because he's got the same playbook that he studied. So that's where our success comes from a lot of times, you know?
I'm glad you marched that out because I love and I wish, I've said this for a lot of years now, I wish we could figure out some way to make the American Fire Service like the military. And it's exactly what you were talking about right there. Say if, all right, Mickey, you want to be a fireman in New York City. So you go to the training academy in, let's just say, upstate New York. Bobby wants to be a fireman in Chicago. He goes to a training academy somewhere in the middle of the country. Steve wants to be a fireman in, let's say, San Diego. I go to academy in California. So there's three fucking national academies, period, the end. And we all learn the same fucking plays, same playbooks for all the different types of building construction in all the areas. So in theory, you could insert you or me to any department in the entire fucking country. It would take us a couple weeks to kind of get brushed up on shit. Okay, I've never fought a fire in an H-type building, right? Or a tenement. So I need to get up to speed on that, but I've been trained on it. I have the education to back it up. I understand the play. I've just never run the play. So I'm JV. I'm trying to make it up to varsity and then eventually professional when we start talking about sports wise. But I love the fact because we would call that out here a predetermined running assignment because you guys know exactly what you're doing. You're not talking. You as an officer doesn't have to tell your backstep guy, hey, I need you to do XYZ because you're on scene of this type of structure with this type of fire on this floor or it's presented this way. Everybody's just going to work and we understand what we're going to do. And I wish the American Fire Service as a whole would adopt that because my department compared to a department, let's say 100 miles away, so a 2-hour drive runs completely different. And it's confusing to me why. And people would just say, hey, well, it's either it's regional or it's building construction. I get all that for sure because I was a fireman on the East Coast. Now I'm a fireman on the West Coast. I understand building construction is way different on the West Coast than it is on the East Coast. But why can't we all have the same playbook and at least understand? Because in the system that I currently work in, I call it a micromanaging fireground where you are not going to go to work until the IC, which is us, you and I, whoever is the first arriving officer on scene, tells you what they want you to do, even though you know for a fact, hey, this is our bread and butter house, this is our bread and butter fire, right? I know exactly what we're going to do, but I'm physically not allowed to move until you get on the radio and say, hey, Steve-O, go ahead and execute plan A. Well, yeah, fuck, I already knew we were going to do plan A, but I have to wait till you say that because that's quote unquote accountability. I wish every department ran like you guys did, where, hey, this predetermined running assignments, we're going to pull this play out. And like you said, we have audibles. All right. Hey, we find there's fire in the cockloft. Shit, it's going to run this fucking building on us, right? So now we have to audible compared to, hey, this is just a room and contents, no big deal. And that could go across the entire nation. I can't figure out why we can't do that. And guys say ego, they say rank, they'll say, hey, there's guys with cross bugles that would lose their job, blah, blah. The military's done it since the inception of time. They take a bunch of assholes, me included, right? And we conform to what they want us to do to accomplish the mission. And I'm not sure why we can't do that in the American Fire Service because we run missions every fucking day. The only difference between us and the military is that our mission comes on the drop of a hat right now when the tones drop, and we have no fucking idea, what that mission is going to be till we get on scene and actually see it. We get some information, but as well as I do, being on the job long enough, that information you get is a 50-50 shot if it's good or not, right? How many times have hey, PD's reporting there's a blowing house fire. You roll up, you're like, there's nothing going on, right? Or the opposite, hey, there's nobody in the house because whoever says that, and you end up pulling 3 people out. So sometimes you get good information, sometimes you get bad, but I can't figure out why we can't just have these playbooks across the country. And I know FDNY, I love how you guys view things like, hey, this is a FDNY. We do things the way we do things, period, the end. And I wish it wasn't FDNY saying that. I wish it was, hey, we're the American fucking Fire Service. This is how we do things, period, the end.
People don't realize that we say thing, and I say we, I'm speaking for the job in the sense where
Mm-hmm.
that comes from the blood. of the brothers that came before us. Like, we learned everything from the mistakes that we made. We've been just doing this a long time. Again, when I say we, speaking about the history of the FDNY, is that it just didn't happen overnight. This has been a lot of trial and error. And we have a stack of books and books and books, and we study for exams. It's tens of thousands of pages. So it's it comes down. People want to fight SOGs and SOPs, and I think because there is a problem with safety overreach. And when I say safety overreach, it's administrative overreaching, affecting tactics from the fireground. Safety culture, I think, gets blurred and mixed into this. To me, a culture of safety is wearing your gear the right way, putting your hood up. For me, wearing your chin strap. Some guys want to fight me on that. Honestly, the helmets they gave us in my job, they fucking suck. It's like wearing a salad bowl on your head. So you crawl down a hallway, it's going to fall off unless you have your chin strap on. We don't have helmets that fit the right way. It is what it is. Fight me all day. The solution, maybe have a helmet that's fit to our head, like the old leathers. I get it. I'm not saying plastic versus leather. I'm saying what the job gives us. So safety, to me, a culture of safety is wearing your gear the right way and being fucking good at your job. That's how we're safe at a fire. Now, the SOG and SOP, why guys feel this kind of restraints them from doing the job. Well, we have to understand that it's very, very important to have these procedures and guidelines that are locked in for my job, especially because you take a fireman from the ass end of Staten Island and you put him up in the Bronx or Harlem for the night and you give him the roof. He gets to that roof and now we have to lower a member on a rope. He knows exactly where to fit in because he knows the play. There's a standard set that you can work in any part of our city, in any borough. Staten Island, predominantly private dwellings, single-family homes. Working in Manhattan, very different. But you can adapt and understand the playbook because it's all the same. So procedures and guidelines, people want to fight them because they say they restrain you. I think it actually disciplines you to focus in to do the job properly. As far as communication, we don't speak on the fireground because we have the play memorized. But we do speak when we can't perform the task within the play. So if you're delayed to the rear, you're going to say, ladder one, OB to ladder one, I'm delayed to the rear because now you can't perform. I have to only know when you cannot execute. When you can't execute, I have to know because I'm expecting you to get the roof. I'm expecting you to get to the rear. The engine officer is expecting you to stretch the line to the fire floor. So start a line. That's all you have to say a lot of times. Start a line, sixth floor. Now the line's being started. They're not telling you what line because you know already because we have a standard in place. They changed that recently where the officer can make that audible, but most buildings we know what line we're stretching. Just again, I talk a lot about details, and I think that the details make you a great firefighter, and we have to slow down and see the details in real time. This is why I don't believe in running on the fireground. I don't believe in wearing your face piece until the last possible moment because all these things kind of parallel into the details of the game and understanding 3-10 steps ahead of what you have to do in that moment because we are a culture of moments within a moment and those moments are the details. But this is where we get a little off-centered when it comes to it is that sometimes focusing a little too much on the details under stress will slow you down and allow you to fail. We have SOGs, SOPs when we come down to a down firefighter per se, and we go through all these ways of firefighter packaging. We should know how to do this, right? But under stress, we can't stop and think about every single detail. We just have to be able to perform in the moment. And when we take training, we can't introduce real life stress. So we have to be careful of hitting every mark in our training. Sometimes when the shit's on, it's just grabbing someone and going, especially victim removal. We're so quick to teach and reinvent repositioning victims, crossing the legs, doing all these maneuvers, which are really, really great tools to have. But sometimes when you go to a fire and this fire won't over your head, it just grab that motherfucker and get him out. You know what I mean? So the details then, if you get to that victim, okay, I just went to this training conference and they say, position the head this way, bring the legs this way, cross them, put them over my thing. Okay, I got this. In real time, under real stress, there's no time for that. There's no time. It's just grab them and go. So SOGs, SOPs, standards, discipline, I think those are all very, very, very important factors for a successful fireground. But it's also finding the tempo and rhythm and cadence within a fire. That's what we lose a lot of times as well, is because every fire has a different tempo. Just like every building has a different play, it has a different tempo to run that play at a different speed, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And kind of like what you're saying, and please correct me if I misunderstood you, but there is, and we talk about all the time, there's a difference between training and drilling, right? when you drill on something over and over again, you can do that in that worst case scenario because it's muscle memory. But when you've been just trained on a bunch of things, you're right. You're just going to grab that. Like sometimes the answer is, I won't even say sometimes, most of the time the answer is grab that motherfucker and go. Exactly like you said, that dirty drag is going to work 100% of the time. Are all the cool ways a good way? Absolutely. If I have the time and my brain's still working because the adrenaline hasn't completely dumped every freaking clear thought I could have because of what's the conditions in that room or in that building at that time when I come across that victim. And like I said, you hit the nail on the head. And please, hopefully I understood that correctly.
No, it's exactly right. Like it's good to have all those tools. I'm not saying never or ever dismiss any of the details of victim removal or firefighter removal or whatever that moment is, forcible entry. But sometimes when the shit's on, the details are out the window and it's instinct, it's intuition, and you just have to trust it and follow it. And when you do, most times it's the right answer.
Yeah, and to harp on just two things you had mentioned, and I have a call that literally proved the fact exactly what you just said. Like, I agree with you, Mickey. Like, I don't want to put my face piece on to the last possible second because I'm trying to conserve the air on my back because I don't know what I might run into in 5 minutes down the road. But same with forcible entry. I'm going to make sure I'm really good on the inward. I'm really good on the outward in at least a couple different ways that I can, without thinking about, be able to get a good force. But I talked to a guy on this podcast that was from a city not far from mine, and he literally had a mayday because he ran out of air because his SOP for that department says you will have your face piece on, breathing air while forcing the door. They use the rabbit tool, the bunny tool, like you guys call it, but the rabbit tool on 98% of their commercial outward swinging doors. Guess what? That door that day, the gap was just too tight. They couldn't get it in. And he went back and he admits, hey, I had to go back to traditional forcible entry and I was rusty because the rabbit tool has worked every fucking time. So he's following his SOPs, basically enters the structure at 2,500 pounds. That's how much air he blew through, right? And his emergency was he got lost and disoriented, but his emergency was he ran out of air because his SOP said he had to be clicked in prior to, because of the worst case scenario. You pop that door, it's a catastrophic smoke explosion, backdraft, whatever meets them, right? Like I tell kids all the time, man, force that fucking door. Then if you're met by a shit ton of fire, turn your back, mask up, or get away, mask up, whatever the case. Shut the fucking door, mask up, right? But again, like I said, I agree in the craft of this job of understanding the difference between should I or shall I kind of every single time. And there's very few shalls in our job, except for we shall occupy the space internally. We shall stretch lines. We shall look for victims. Like those are the shalls. All the other ones should just be like, hey, these are ideas and you can adopt them, but understand the risks. Like understand the risk of putting your mask on too early. And even if you're not breathing air, like I tell guys all the time, you could be the most seasoned guy in the job. As soon as you put your mask on, you're putting physical blinders on, because your mask restricts your view. It's just physics. It's just how it is. But I love, like I said, I love how you think about the job. I knew that prior to even talking to you, just from your Instagram page and reading everything you put out. I wish there's more guys like you out there on social media preaching the information of just a good job, the passion behind this job, and kind of like you were saying, just be fucking good at your job. That would take care of a lot of issues right there. You don't have to know 20 different ways. If you're really fucking good at about 3, you're probably gonna be a damn good fireman. I don't know.
Yeah. Before we go, I just want to say one thing about I can't wrap my brain around what you were just saying about that SOP that
Hmm.
you have to have the face piece on as you're forcing the door. This job is so conditional. And that, again, talking about SOPs and SOGs, that is a blatant overreach of safety. We have to remember, and for any young fireman that's listening that may be in that situation, is that the door is merely the obstacle. It's not the objective. Your mission is 10, 15, 20 feet inside that fire building. The door is just the obstacle to get there. So don't overthink forcible entry. Be proficient, be very fucking good at it, but that's not the job. The job is inside the fire building. That said, when we force that door, let the building breathe. Let the fire apartment breathe like a fine bottle of wine. Let it breathe. See what you have. Let that smoke lift. When the smoke lifts, now you can see, all right, the smoke goes all the way up to the top of the door frame. The fire is probably upstairs or either really back deep into a seat of that fire building. If you force the door and it's halfway in the area of that door frame, you're probably on the fire floor. And if you force the door and it's pinned down, the fire's in the basement, in the cellar. Or if you deal with duplex apartments in a project type area or a fireproof area, it's a duplex down, you force the door, you're thinking, well, there's no basement and it's pinned all the way to the ground. There's probably a duplex down, the fire's below you, even in a fireproof building. So again, slowing down, forcing the door, again, it's just the obstacle. The mission is inside. Allowing the building to breathe, that's going to give you the details of what comes next. Then we control the door, bring the door back, mask up, get ready to go to war. Make sure we have our gear on right, because that truly is safe firefighting, is being ready to go to war. As an officer, I want to take you places you never thought you could go, but I have to be able to get you there and get you back. And that comes from wearing your gear the right way. It's not cool not to wear your hood. It's not cool not to wear your chin strap. It's not cool to leave your waist belt dangling off your mask. It's not cool. It used to be cool because I used to do all those things too. But now, after a series of mistakes throughout my career and realizing that, it's pretty cool just to wear your fucking gear and go 10 rooms deep rather than 2 rooms deep if something go wrong. So just understand that SOPs, SOGs are important for discipline, but there are areas with safety overreach, and that's one of them. I would love to sit down with the chief, whoever wrote that SOP or SOG, and be like, have you ever been to a fire in your life? Have you ever forced a door in your life? Because once you have that face piece on, it introduces stress. Stress, when you're trying to solve the problem of forcible entry, is not good. We have to be able to see things clearly. Called a loop cycle, and like, seeing is not observing. We have to be able to observe. Seeing, you can see a lot of things when you have the face piece on, but you can't observe anything. That's the key. You know what I mean?
I do. I do. And again, I hope that resonates with somebody listening to this, because that is probably the most important thing that would come out of this entire podcast is, and that has so many different layers to it. And where do you get that? You get that through experience. You get that through working with that senior guy. You get that through training and drilling and all the above, and then just running the fucking jobs. But more importantly, I think you get all that too from these kind of conversations, or at least listening to them. If you don't maybe have the experience in your house, that's why, like, I tell guys all the time, I'm like, hey, if you want to become a better fireman, or at least the first step to becoming a better fireman is when you're driving to work, instead of listening to the radio or music, listen to a podcast and just listen to what the guys are talking about the job, right? And you can guarantee it could be the worst podcast episode you ever listen to. You'll probably pick up one thing. At least it might even be one thing you will never do, right? Because of a story that was told, but listen to the stories. And I think a lot of guys forget that. We can learn so much from each other just by listening to another guy talk that has a day on the job or 30 years on the job. It doesn't fucking matter. He might have been to a fire or ran into an incident that you've never seen, or you were unsuccessful with, or he was just more successful than you were, and you could learn something from it. So I think that constant learner is probably the biggest key also in the American Fire Service right now. And we get that from listening to our senior members of what they've been through. And as long as you can vet them, right? They've been to the jobs and they have the experience, and you can pull something from all those guys.
Even if you're not going to fires, we all want to go to fires. We want to go to fires, every single day of our lives if you truly love it. But mental rehearsal, acting like you've been there before, visualizing like you're going to it is very, very important. We do this. You have to look at things differently. I tell the probies when I have them, I do the mental performance with them, and I say, you're ruined for life now, because every place you go from this point forward, you're going to be looking like the building is on fire. You're going to be looking for exits. You're going to be looking at the fires in this room. What would I do? Your back's going to be facing to the wall. You'll be always looking at the exit because the building might catch on fire, But mental rehearsal is so important. Like when I was a kid, I sat with my grandfather and my father on the couch hundreds and hundreds of times with the old fire engineering and firehouse magazines. And I would find a picture and I'd be like, Dad, what would you do here? And he'd be like, I would do this. And then I asked my grandfather, what would you do here? I would do that. And then I would lay in bed that night and look at it and figure out what I would do and then visualize doing it. And then sometimes you're lucky enough that next night you go to a fire. It's the same house that's on fire with the same conditions out the same windows. And you're like, oh my God, I've been here before. And it becomes natural. So if you're not going to fires, you want to go to more fires, visualize going to fires. Every single run you're on, treat it like it's a fire run. It could be EMS, it could be a gas leak, it could be a water leak, whatever it may be. Look at that apartment like it's on fire and talk to the guys. What would you do here? What would you do there? If you're the probie, say, hey, boss, if the fire's here, what are we doing next? And then you can visualize doing it.
Yeah. And I challenge anybody listening, your next EMS run, because I tell guys all the time, the only good thing we get from EMS runs is we get to pre-plan buildings, and guys will laugh at me all the time because we'll be, especially when it's a mundane EMS run, I'm always looking around. They're like, what are you looking at? I'm like, I'm looking at a lot of things. Are there sprinkler heads? Where are the exits at? How many windows? The position of the apartment setup or the house or whatever, and I challenge you, if you're the new guy, ask your officer, hey, exactly what you said. If we were to have a fire in this back bedroom, what would we do? Right? Or if you're the officer, even better, grab your own guys and then ask them, hey, if we had a fire in the back, what would you do? Right? And then maybe instill some knowledge on them or find out where their game is right now. Do they even have that mental mindset, or maybe set them up for success with that and be like, hey, during these runs, start looking at those kind of things, because again, that is our best training possible, because we might have never been in that building prior to being on fire, but I guarantee you 98% of the fire departments across the country run more EMS than they do fire. So I bet you're going to be in that type of house or that type of apartment at some point on EMS run before it catches on fire. So at least you have a general idea of the layouts, right? What kind of protection systems are already built into the buildings? Are there any at all? Means of egress, all those fun things. And at least that's what I like to do, because EMS runs are no fun, I don't think, unless, the shootings and stabbings are always good for adrenaline dumps. But everything else, it's like, I'm doing this to pre-plan for when this house does catch on fire, or the neighbors does, and it's the same freaking layout. At least I know. I don't know if it's a hoarding situation yet, but at least I know where the bedrooms are, so I can at least deploy my guys around maybe the rear instead of going through the front door. I mean, I don't know. We could what if this all day long.
Yeah.
But I love that so much. So again, Mickey, without killing too much of your time here, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for spreading all this. We know the why, how you became a fireman. So let's get into the last little bit here. Traditions. It's so important in the American Fire Service. I believe there's a lot of traditions that we're still trying to hold on the West Coast, and there's traditions that we've lost that we're desperately trying to get back. So with all that said, what is your favorite American Fire Service tradition? But more importantly, why? Why do you love it so much? And it doesn't have to be from New York. It could be from anywhere. But I know you're ingrained, and you've said from day one, minute one, we've been talking, you've been FDNY through and through from day one. So what's your favorite American Fire Service tradition, brother? But why? Why do you love it so much?
Where my head goes with this one goes back to my engine company days. And I truly believe that the engine company is the backbone of the American Fire Service, even though I'm a truckie at heart,
Yeah, gross.
But but the knob's the job. We know that, right? And with
Mm.
that, something that I think that maybe we're not losing on a national level. Maybe some places never truly embraced it, but there was a photo that went up on somebody's podcast or whatever, some fire comedian these guys are, right? Talking about a bunch of guys packing a hose, and said, come on, guys, do we really need all these people packing the hose, right?
Mm.
So that said, it's like that opened my eyes that maybe this isn't the tradition all over the country, but for my job, it certainly is. And it's something that we will never lose. And it's something that I hold very dearly to me, is that when you put that fire out, you're the nozzleman. You put 3, 4, 5 rooms of fire out. It was out 4 windows on arrival. You get down to that street level, take your mask off real quick, and you're the first guy up in that hose bed packing the hose. But that's your platform. That's your stage. And everyone else that's packing the hose, looking up, thinking, that kid's doing pretty good. He caught another one. Or they're thinking, I can't believe this kid caught another fire. What the fuck, man? When's my turn? So like that moment of being on the hose bed and looking down as everyone's looking up, and you maybe have snot coming down, your face is a little black, maybe you're shivering, you're soaking wet, and everyone's looking up and you're packing that hose. You're packing, and everyone's laughing. Everyone that's packing the hose online, they're all breaking balls, telling stories. What'd you do? Where'd you go? I was fucking hot in there, right? Having that conversation, and you're up there looking down, thinking this is the greatest fucking job in the world. Because that adrenaline rush is going to leave you very, very soon. Because after a fire, we know that adrenaline, right? You're riding very, very high. But the problem is, and why that moment is so special and why we can't lose it, is because we have to enjoy it and embrace that moment. Because when we get back to the firehouse and we get back to the bunk and we're laying down or we're driving home that night, we start to think and replay, once the adrenaline fades, or back to reality now, everything that you did wrong at that fire. So all you're going to think about. So that's what's so fucked up about this job, is that what makes it so addictive is that we want the next one. We want that adrenaline high, but we want to be able to fix everything we did at the one before. And once the adrenaline high wears off, that's all you're going to think about is the negative. So you can never truly, truly enjoy a fire. I can at least because I'm going over everything that went wrong. So that tradition for me that we cannot lose is the moment of riding the high. Ride that fucking high, man. Ride it because it goes away quick. But the highest point, the best tradition is packing the hose, looking down, and the guy's looking up.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely. No one has said that. So it's even better. But you're absolutely right. And I never thought of it that way because I do the same thing. You know, after you get back to the house, you go, fuck, man, I fucked up that on scene, or I should have positioned my guys at a different spot, or whatever it was, even though everything was gangbusters, really, like high fives, the Chiefs, like fucking good work, boys. Let's go home. Let's, pack up. And you're absolutely right. I think the hypercriticalness of us, just we always want to do perfect, and there's never going to be a perfect job. At least I haven't been on one yet. It's just, but at least there's always learning opportunities and then chances to get better off of those. So tradition wise, dude, I absolutely love it. So let's switch it up. My favorite question: snap your fingers. You're basically the commissioner of the fucking world. You get to change something in the American Fire Service, and it happens right now. No sweat equity, instant gratification. What would it be? But more importantly, why? Why would you either insert, delete, or change whatever this is in the American Fire Service? Right.
This became an easy one for me now that we talked a little bit about this. And I think that every single fire academy across the nation, day one, needs a class on culture, legacy, and tradition. Now, the world of the fire and the American Fire Service, they're trying to fight culture. But unfortunately, that's what this job is based on. It's what founded this job. However, culture is very, very unique and it's very individual, meaning that the culture where I work is very different than the culture where you work, but we don't know that. No one tells us what the culture is. We cannot teach culture. There's so many people out there trying to teach culture. Books written on it, at conferences, there's classes on it. Again, it's personal. It's passed on from generation to generation to generation. Can we change culture? Absolutely, but we have to be able to pass it on. So I think that allowing people to buy in, we're not allowed to say buy in anymore either. That's ridiculous because buying into something that is the greatest thing on earth will forever take care of you and your family, and you will find the love of this job if you quote unquote buy in. But how do you buy into something if no one ever told you what to buy into? And that's where we're struggling with these generations of firefighters coming into the field now is that they don't know the generation of why, like we spoke about earlier. It's well, why should I buy in? Why is this the greatest job? Some things you just can't write down. They want everything written down in a list of rules. Like, okay, the job is great because of this. The job is great because of this. No, the job is great because of love, because of tradition, because of culture. And this is our culture. So if you buy in and trust me, I promise you the job will take care of you. A great analogy is grandma's sauce, and I've talked about this before on another podcast. Was talking about grandma's sauce, and never know what truly is in the recipe of the sauce because grandma's going to have to show you. She'll never write it down. She shows you when it's time for you to learn. So that's what we need to do. If I could change anything, it would have that class of culture, tradition, and honor because, again, we're setting these young firefighters up for failure and we're not allowing them to buy in. We're telling them that there's no culture and that tradition's dead because this is just a job. No, it's the job. And this is why. And break it down for them. So when they get to the field, they're already set up. They walk into a firehouse, they know what to expect. And again, that culture is very unique to the city or town that you're a part of. And I think it's important that we let the kid that worked in Best Buy or Applebee's 2 weeks ago understand why they hit the lottery.
I love that. And that's a great way to put it too. And you're absolutely correct. We are failing the new kids getting on the job because we are not interjecting where we came from and the culture of our department of the American Fire Service as a whole. Because I talked to one guy that worked, I think in Canada, right? So not far, but completely different culture than I would say the American Fire Service as a whole. But I believe it does hold a lot of teeth across the world. I mean, there's things that we do collectively as the American Fire Service that people in Europe would absolutely never even consider. And it's just like, you guys are a bunch of cowboys or whatever. It's like, well, let's take a step back. Let's talk about the history of where we came from, especially in a department like yours that's been around for a couple hundred years, and is steeped in culture and tradition. Like, shame on us for not making sure that these new guys coming in understand where we came from. And I just, again, like you said, day one, like literally day one, minute one in the academy. Hey, listen, motherfuckers, I'm gonna talk to you for a bit, because the grandma sauce recipe is a great analogy, because she, even if you were to write it down, it is a pinch of salt, right? Well, what's a fucking pinch? Honey, I'll show you. This is a pinch, right? Is that a tablespoon? Is that a teaspoon? I don't fucking know, but now I know what a pinch is because I was taught by grandma when I was ready to understand it. And it's exactly what you're saying. Like, the kids in the academy, they're ready to understand it now, and if not, they need to leave. It's not for them. But we need be at that point, we need to understand they're ready to be taught, and we need to teach them.
And they want to know, like, why wouldn't you want to know what you're getting yourself into? That's what I don't understand. Why they're trying to just they're trying to make the job very vanilla. When I say they, it's administrators. It's not the job. It's the municipalities or the cities or the townships. They're trying to make it very vanilla, very politically correct, which we are. But within that, there's a love and a tradition of the game. Within the tradition and culture of whatever that city you're a part of or that town you're a part of, even within you have 9 firehouses, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within those 9, there's a different tradition and culture and a standard within the 9.
Oh, yeah.
And when you come to one, it should be very straight up and blunt and straightforward. Say, brother, this is the standard of this house. You either rise to the standard or go work at the house down the street, because they have a lower standard. I know they do. But you want to work here, our standard's here. Love to have you, but you have to rise to the standard. So by not getting it all out there and putting it right in front of everyone and say, okay, this is the tradition and culture of the job. And now you're in this firehouse. This is the standards, tradition, and culture of this firehouse. Rise to them or go to another one. And that's important because, again, we're setting up firefighters for failure because they're not being honest, because we're scared to be honest. We're losing the senior guy role because administratives are pushing back against them. So if we could talk for hours on this topic, but again, I think that we just have to put it all out there straightforward and say, brother, you won the lottery. This is why. This is what our culture and our tradition and our love of the job is. And if you don't love it like we do, that's fine. But you have to understand why you're here and that this job is greater than you.
Exactly.
And we're not doing it. Now, so wrap it up. That's what I would change. I think that we got to have that out there in every single academy from day one, saying, here it is.
I love it. And again, I hope to see that in the near future. And I know for a fact, because of the position that I'm granted to be in right now and have the ability to be in, I'm going to start interjecting that with the kids that I get to influence on day one. It's like, hey, let me teach you the culture of our area right now, right before we even get into anything else, because it's important. And, I always refer back to traditions with the young guys of the American Fire Service. And actually, a lot go back to FDNY, because you guys have been around for so long. So starting to talk about tool history, I like to do, starting to talk about just the history of how the fire service became back in the day. These kids don't know. And I think it's important, just because, hey, you're now going to be wearing that Maltese cross on your chest that instantly gets you buy-in and trust with the public. You need to understand the brothers that died and honor the traditions that came before you for you to wear that. And I always give this one little story. It's like, if you're shopping for chow, right, with the boys, and you see a kid and you're like, hey kid, come with me real quick. Let me show you the truck. Or you want to see the truck, right? Oh, hell yeah. See him, show him the truck. That could be a future fireman. And all it took was just, he doesn't fucking know your name. He'll never remember your name, but he'll just know that, hey, when I was 6, this fireman fucking showed me the truck, and then it was game over at that point. That's his why, or whatever the case might be. Now insert it. You're in civilian clothes buying chow for the old lady in the family, right? You say to that little kid, hey, you want to see the truck? You're a fucking creep, right? You're like, because we can see my pickup truck, but it has everything to do with that Maltese cross and that uniform outside of that individual, if that makes any sense at all. Not saying that our guys aren't good guys, but we're good guys because of that cross, because of what we joined and what we swore we were going to do. And because the guys that kind of brought us up through the American Fire Service. And now it's our job as senior members to make sure we instill that in the next generation, coming up so we don't lose that. We don't lose that trust and that buy-in with the public. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same in New York, but I'll tell you in Baltimore it was, and out here in Arizona it is. So I hope you guys still have the same trust with the public that we do, but I hope that never dies.
No, we do it for the most part. Certain neighborhoods are certain neighborhoods, but I've always worked in the ghetto, and I don't know if you can even say that word anymore. I don't think it's a bad.
Mm,
Is that a
I
bad
do
word?
it. I know. I say it all the time. You're not allowed to say hoarding anymore. I say that all the time too.
Yeah. But I've always worked in predominantly poor neighborhoods in my career, and the firehouse was always the focal point for a lot of children to come that didn't have dads or didn't have father figures, or were just lost and looking for something more in life and trying to stay out of trouble or trying to stay out of the gangs. And that was, I love that. I love that, where it's like that connection with the public goes so far, because then you go into one of their buildings and you see them and they see you, they recognize you, and it really is a true, I wouldn't say it's a friendship, but it's definitely an understanding that we are the safe place for you. And I think that for a lot of young kids that have no guidance, they become firemen. And I love when I see kids from inner cities becoming firemen, because that's all they saw was positivity, and they saw safety, and they wanted that.
And like you said earlier, they end up making fucking great firemen in the long run most of the time.
They're the best. Love
Yeah.
them.
And like you said, and you're from the neighborhood, and it's just, I love that whole tradition on its own right there. And the fact that you guys have that because of the size of your city, I'm jealous. I'll be honest with you. Absolutely. Because I think, again, like we were talking earlier, the people are the most important part of this job, and the public is part of that. They're why they're why we're here, period. The end. If it wasn't for the public's need of us, then we wouldn't exist as a whole. We would just let everything burn. And if you're trapped in a burning building, you're just going to die if you can't make your way out. That'd be a horrible society to live in.
Yeah.
So, all right, brother. Well, listen, thank you again so much for your time. Again, please check out Top Floor Tactics on Instagram. Shoot my man Mickey an email if you have any questions. And again, he's touring the country. He's going to be on the West Coast. So all my West Coast brothers listening to this. So probably mid 2026. Check him out. I know for a fact I will be there for the first one I can make. So thank you again, my brother, for coming out. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you so much. Is there anything you want to leave the audience before we close out, sir?
No, Steve, thanks for having me. It means a lot. It was a great conversation. It really was. The last thing I said it during the episode, but just remember that if you take care of this job, when I say this job, the family, the brotherhood, right? Take care of it, love it, respect it, nourish it. I promise you with all my heart, we'll always, always take care of you and your family for the next generation and generation after that. And the best part of it is never have to say thank you. You just do the right thing for the next brother and sister in need.
I love it. I can't top that at all. So with what Mickey said, see you guys in another 2 weeks. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in another 2 weeks. Remember to like, share, review if you can. Helps drive traffic to our podcast. Remember, let's leave our ego out of the fire service. It's amazing what we can accomplish when no one's looking for credit. Much love. Let's stop beating our own and become better firemen. Catch you next time.